This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. There is growing talk at the White House and in Congress tonight that the John Tower nomination is either dead or so close that no one can tell. President Bush is holding yet another strategy session at the White House tonight with Senate Republican leaders. John Tower will be there. Tower's under increasing pressure to pull out. All of this follows new setbacks in President Bush's determined efforts to get the Tower nomination through at whatever cost, and in the process spare himself an embarrassing defeat in an up or down vote by the full Senate. CBS News White House correspondent Leslie Stahl begins our coverage on the run-up to the final showdown on John Tower.
Earlier, White House boasts that we've got the votes turned to private admissions today that the Tower nomination is all but a lost cause. But still, Mr. Bush put on another of his almost daily public displays of support. This one, a cabinet meeting with Tower at his side.
I am committed. I'm committed on two grounds, and I've just told my cabinet this. One of them has to do with who best to run the Pentagon. And I haven't heard one single voice challenge this man's knowledge, his ability.
Have you picked up any Democratic senators?
Who knows?
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
White House officials insist that no replacement is being discussed. In a desperate uphill effort, the president lobbied a dozen senators, all of them Democrats, in a series of one-on-one meetings. Treasury Secretary Nicholas Brady was sent on his own arm-twisting mission to Capitol Hill. Vice President Quayle was put in charge of holding the Republicans.
5 Democratic senators plus 45 Republicans will give us 50, and I'll make the 51st vote in favor of John Tower.
I will not consume any beverage alcohol of any type or form, including wine, beer, spirits.
It appears that Tower's no more drinking vow over the weekend failed to move any votes, as White House officials who joined in mapping that pledge strategy had hoped.
If it's determined that Tower has any chance, the president will try to delay the vote to buy more time for lobbying. If it's clear by tomorrow that he can't win, the president will call for a quick vote. While some White House officials say they would like Tower to withdraw on his own, they do not expect him to, nor will he be asked to. Mr. Bush wants to avoid the appearance of weakness in the charge that he came to question his own judgment in picking Tower. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer is on Capitol Hill this evening with the view from there on what appears to be the edge of doom for the Tower nomination. Bob, how does it look?
Dan, the growing feeling among both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate is that the Tower nomination is dead, but the Republicans intend to go down fighting, and it's turning very nasty. The Republican leader went to the floor tonight to plead for fairness.
If you don't like John Tower, can't do much about that. If you're already locked in concrete, we can't do much about that. But we can expect people to look at the facts.
As most Republicans told it, the FBI has come up with nothing to disqualify Tower as defense secretary.
Not one single member of our body has seen John Tower drunk. And yet there are members of this body who've seen other members of the body drunk.
But in drafting its final report, the Democratic majority on the Armed Services Committee cites 4 major concerns about Tower: excessive use of alcohol, questionable judgment reflected in his consulting services to major defense firms, the appearance of conflict of interest due to prior ties to defense contractors, and finally, indiscreet behavior toward women. Democrat Hollings of South Carolina, who support the White House had hoped to win, said tonight he'll vote against Tower because of what the FBI report states about drinking problems.
John Tower could not serve in the nuclear navy. In fact, at 201 filed, he couldn't get promoted from corporal to sergeant if you looked at the record.
It has gotten so personal that one Republican senator told his colleagues today that from now on, if he sees any senator on the floor drunk, he will point it out. But even those who are strongest for Tower now concede it's virtually impossible to find enough votes to confirm him. 2 Republican senators, Dan, have asked the president to draw down the nomination.
Thanks, Bob. 50 to 100 people are reported dead from 2 days of rioting and looting in Venezuela. And tonight, the Venezuelan government suspended some constitutional rights and asked the army to enforce a curfew. The riots were sparked by price increases against a backdrop of economic crisis. Our Latin American correspondent Juan Vasquez has a report from Miami.
The explosion of violence in one of Latin America's most stable democracies was the worst in 30 years. Scores of stores were looted, supermarkets were emptied. No food or beverage truck was safe from the angry mobs. Some of the main streets and highways were blocked, and rioters set fires throughout the capital. The police resorted to punishing tactics to beat the looters into line, but they were outnumbered. What began as a protest against an increase in bus fares quickly turned into an uprising driven by despair over the falling economy.
From the point of view of the man of the street, he sees that prices are going up. He sees interest rates going up. He sees that the opportunities for jobs are not there like they were in '88, and therefore he feels frustrated.
President Carlos Andres Perez was inaugurated only a few weeks ago, promising a return to prosperity. Good times ahead. But like the rest of Latin America, Venezuela is burdened by a huge foreign debt that has a chokehold on the economy, and the result is anger. The rioting has spread to cities all over the country. The armed forces have been mobilized and constitutional rights suspended. Hospitals are full and unable to cope with a number of injured. The short-term challenge now for Venezuela is to restore order. The long-term question for this and other Latin American democracies is how much austerity a country can take without tumbling into political chaos. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Miami.
The Parliament of Iran voted today to break diplomatic relations with Britain in 1 week unless the British change their position in defense of author Salman Rushdie. In London, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher said there is no chance of that. And violence over Rushdie's satanic verses apparently spread to the United States. Firebombs caused minor damage at 2 bookstores in Berkeley, California, including a branch of the respected Walden Books, a chain that pulled the novel and then changed its mind last week. No one claimed responsibility, but in Washington, President Bush personally ordered an investigation into those bombing incidents. The president said he will not tolerate any assault on free speech. And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Richard Schlesinger on crank, the killer drug in our future. And David Browning on the Battle of the Hollywoods. One has the fame, but who owns the name?
All Sears stores are closed today for the biggest event in Sears history. Thousands of people are at work right now, lowering prices on over 50,000 items in Sears stores and catalogs, and we'll keep them low. If it helps, think of it as a sale that never ends, because starting at noon tomorrow, Sears will open with a whole new way to shop. You'll get great low prices every single day, guaranteed. At Sears, you get your money's worth and a whole lot more.
All your life, you've taken care of everyone else, but now
it's my turn to see what I can see. I hope you'll understand. This time's just for me.
Continental's Get Up and Go Passport brings you virtually unlimited domestic travel for one low annual fee. And for a little more, Europe, the Caribbean, or the Pacific.
I've written a sort of educational graffiti with Old English oil. It moisturizes to help prevent drying and cracking, brings out wood's natural beauty in the glorious manner that befits my glorious manner. Old English helps prevent drying and cracking.
This year, if you really want to get money back, listen to Henry Block.
Go to Subaru.
Get up to $1,000 back on a Subaru.
The nation's airline industry finally proposed its own repair program today for aging aircraft. This follows months of growing complaints about safety and airline deregulation, Washington opting out, and the deaths of 9 passengers near Hawaii last week in the latest blowout in the sky aboard an aging jetliner. CBS News correspondent Mark Phillips reports on old airplanes and new worries for the flying public.
It's a revolution in thinking on how to make older airplanes safe. The United Boeing 747 accident last week is a graphic and deadly example of the problem. The airline industry has been reevaluating its approach to old planes since the Aloha accident last year, in which a stewardess died. Holes which have been appearing in the planes are being traced to holes in the system.
We have seen some failures, recent failures, that have indicated that the system that we were operating before, although not perfect, had some holes in it.
The system they were operating before merely called for older planes to be inspected more often and fixed when problems were found. Now the industry is saying, in effect, that the holes should be fixed before they happen. The Air Transport Association says that Boeing 727s, 737s, and 747s, 1,300 of them at present, should go through a major overhaul when they reach a certain age or have been through a certain number of flights. That significant parts of the planes must be replaced.
We still believe they're safe, and you can continue to inspect, but we think there's a time that you should stop inspecting and make some modifications.
But to keep a 737 safe, for example, after 20 years or 75,000 flights, the plane would have to have its lap joints re-riveted. That's where the Aloha plane came apart. It would need the reinforcing webbing in its wings and fuselage rebuilt. It would need the skin on its belly repaired, and that's just the beginning. The cost, about $600,000 per plane, about $800 million to the industry in total. The average age of planes in the U.S. commercial fleet is about 13 years. Some carriers have much older fleets. There is a growing feeling that repair isn't the answer. Mandatory retirement of airplanes is.
I don't think that question has been adequately answered, and it has to be.
Today's recommendations concern only Boeing planes. Similar reports on other manufacturers are still being worked on. And this is only a recommendation. The Federal Aviation Administration will have to decide whether to make these changes law. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
New doubts tonight about whether the criminal conspiracy and cover-up charges against Oliver North will ever actually be decided by a jury. This follows an offensive by North's lawyers claiming that government prosecutors tried to block supposedly secret information from being introduced as evidence. Information the government now admits was used in another court case. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver has our report.
Judge Gerhard Gesell again today raised the question of whether classified information problems are so burdensome that Oliver North can never be given a fair trial, thus opening the possibility that the trial could be aborted. The issue arose during testimony by Robert Owen, who worked as North's courier to Central America. For 2 days, the defense fought with the government over disclosing secret information in memos Owen wrote to North. In particular, the name of a Costa Rican official who helped in the Contra effort. But last night it was revealed that the name had already been disclosed when the memos were turned over in a Florida civil suit brought against the U.S. government by a private anti-Contra group.
It's a little bit like the cow got out of the barn, now they're trying to lock the gate.
Today in court, things got even more confusing. A prosecutor and the security officer for the independent counsel both admitted that they had known the supposedly secret documents were out of the bag and done nothing about it. The documents were quickly declassified today, but Judge Gesell said that the question has been raised as to whether a fair trial can be given when classified restrictions are applied to this particular case. But the judge said he will let Owen finish his testimony tomorrow.
Back to the Ku Klux Klan trial.
But then the judge will put the trial on hold while he decides whether other classified information problems can be conquered so that the rest of the case can proceed. Rita Braver, CBS News at the federal courthouse in Washington.
The Commerce Department today reported the gross national product, its broadest measure of economic health, grew at a somewhat sickly annual rate of 2% in the final 3 months of last year. That put GNP growth at 3.8% for all of 1988, which was the best showing since 1984. The weak performance for the final quarter resulted in part from a widening of the U.S. trade deficit to $32 billion.
Hot tea all day doesn't stop this denture from hitting high C.
Hot tea? Fix-it and forget it.
Give up hot chocolate just because I started wearing dentures? Scam!
Hot chocolate? Fix-it and forget it. Heat-resistant Fix-it spreads evenly to keep on fixing loose spots, no matter how often it gets hot.
I can drink hot coffee all day and still help a lady.
Heat-resistant. One more reason to use Fix-it and forget it.
You've always trusted Woolite to care for your fine sweaters. Wouldn't you love to get that same Woolite care for your rugs and for your chairs? Well, here's how. Woolite Deep Cleaning Rug Cleaner works so well, it removes even stubborn dirt. And for chairs, Woolite Upholstery Cleaner foams away dirt safely and beautifully. Get your rugs and upholstery Woolite clean with Woolite Rug Cleaners and Upholstery Cleaner. Trust Woolite care for rugs and chairs. You're on your way.
Who would have figured it?
I grow up in the city and end up testing products for the farm, like this one from Dow. We study its effects in the classroom and check the results in the field. It yields more food, more profits for family farmers, and greater groundwater protection. But Dow gave me a grant to find out how to make it work even better. You know, I like being a city kid working in a cornfield.
Dow lets you do great things.
A National Institute of Drug Abuse survey of high school seniors out today suggests a possible drop in cocaine, crack cocaine, and marijuana use for the second year in a row. Still, the results indicate 1 in 8 high school seniors nationwide tries cocaine, and 50% say they have used an illegal drug at least once. Against this information, just what the nation didn't need, a new and spreading form of drug addiction and violence. It's called crank. That's an updated version of the amphetamines called speed a generation ago. One thing hasn't changed. Speed kills, and so does crank. CBS News correspondent Richard Schlesinger has been on the streets investigating.
Lay down. It is one of the fastest growing cottage industries in America.
This is the formula for, it says here, Speed Cook.
The illegal at-home manufacture of methamphetamine, a supercharged version of the popular 60s drug Speed. It's quick and easy to make, and it is flooding the market.
It's just an astronomical problem. We have mom and pop operations. We have 10-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, neighborhood watch captains, community leaders, murderers, psychotics, psychologists, just everyone manufacturing methamphetamine.
On the street, the drug is called crank or crystal. There is so much of it in San Diego that the town's been dubbed Crystal City. It is more popular than cocaine. Drug rehabilitation centers have been overwhelmed with young addicts drawn to the drug because it is cheaper and longer lasting than cocaine.
When I was doing the crystal, I didn't have to eat for weeks at a time. I'd stay up for a month and I wouldn't have to sleep and I wouldn't have to eat.
When I walked with my back like this, you know, and if anybody looked at me wrong, I'd hit them for no reason.
I'd steal. Then I started robbing houses.
Something told me inside myself, if you don't stop this, you're going to die. No matter how many lines I kept doing, I could never get up again.
Methamphetamine can make people psychotic. In San Diego, nearly 40% of all murders and felonies are attributed to it. And the problem is spreading. Methamphetamine has already invaded most western states.
It is spreading to the East Coast, and probably into the 90s we'll have a very serious problem.
Nationwide?
Nationwide, yes.
The drug is often produced in laboratories tucked away in rural areas. This is Johnston County, Oklahoma, a state where police say the production of methamphetamine has increased 700% in the past 10 years.
Police officers with a search warrant demanding entry.
The materials needed to make the drug can be purchased easily and legally at chemical supply stores. A small investment in lab supplies can be turned into huge profits. This man made $1 million a year.
We built our clientele through habitual use, because you can't stop. Once you start, you can't stop amphetamines.
Capturing methamphetamine dealers is a drug agent's nightmare. The dealers are often armed and violent. When Oklahoma officials raided this lab, they found 30 high-powered rifles and pistols.
You have to approach these places with great caution and a number of prayers on your tongue.
The chemicals needed to make the drug are extremely volatile, and frequently the labs are only discovered when they explode, like this one in a luxury condominium.
I can't believe it. I really can't. That's the only reason we moved here, was a quiet community.
Police and traffickers agree more communities will be disrupted as the popularity of this drug increases.
If you think the cocaine wars was bad, brother, you ain't seen nothing yet, because the amphetamine wars is going to be 10 times as worse.
And this is a war that will be fought on the home front. Foreigners are not responsible for this drug. It is a product made in America. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Tishomingo, Oklahoma.
All Sears stores are closed today for the biggest event in Sears history. Thousands of people are at work right now, lowering prices on over 50,000 items in Sears stores and catalogs, and we'll keep them low. If it helps, think of it as a sale that never ends, because starting at noon tomorrow, Sears will open with a whole new way to shop. You'll get great low prices every single day, guaranteed. At Sears, you get your money's worth, and a whole lot more.
Oh, my sinuses.
Sinus headaches are worse in the morning.
Gotta be sharp today.
During the night, pain and pressure build up. That's why you need maximum strength Sinead. Sinead is so strong, it handles even morning sinus headaches, but it won't make you drowsy.
All set to go?
Yep, up and running. Good morning, this is your AMD.
Maximum strength Sinead. Strong enough for even morning sinus headaches.
What's the one double-strength antacid doctors recommend most? Double-strength Mylanta 2. And what's the one double-strength antacid pharmacists recommend most? Double-strength Mylanta 2. After all, it gives you nearly double the acid-neutralizing power of any leading regular-strength brand. So for fast, effective relief, double-strength Mylanta 2. That's the one. And by the way, what's the one double-strength antacid hospitals use most?
Democratic primary day in the Chicago mayor's race. The outcome of the voting is being watched nationwide tonight as a test of candidates, coalitions, and legacies, and the politics of race in 1989. CBS News correspondent Frank Courier has our report.
He's the mild-mannered incumbent, acting Mayor Eugene Sawyer, battling to keep the keys to his city and to claim its legacy.
I want to keep the keys because I want to keep Harold Washington's dream alive.
The plain-spoken challenger and front-runner is Richard Daley, eldest son and some say spitting image of his father, who ruled Chicago for 21 years.
Who will say no to the city council and to the fast buck artists who hang around City Hall corridors?
Casting long shadows in the race for mayor of Chicago, two legends, Richard J. Daley, the boss, and Harold Washington, the reformer and Chicago's first black mayor. A race that began only hours after he died of a heart attack in 1987. In a city of 1.5 million registered voters whose loyalties divide almost equally black and white, the politics of race have underscored the final days of this Democratic primary campaign. Racial passions flared during a series of black-oriented Dump Daley rallies, forcing Sawyer to distance himself from some alleged allies.
Richard Daley represents racism in Chicago.
Soon after, a campaign watchdog group censured Daley for remarks made at a gathering of mostly white supporters.
We see the pettiness at City Hall. You want a mayor to sit down with everybody.
It seems clear to us that he did say, you want a white mayor who can sit down with everybody.
I've never said that. I've never said that, Jim. I have never said that.
Both candidates have spent millions on TV. Daley emphasizing his 16 years in public office, Sawyer dramatizing Daley's inexperience, someone who bumbles along even with cue cards.
What if he becomes mayor?
Daley faces competition for the white ethnic vote from GOP write-in candidate Ed Bradoliak. And Sawyer, if he wins, must face popular rival black independent Tim Evans in the April 4th general election.
For Gene Sawyer to win, Gene Sawyer needs a overwhelming turnout in the black community. Not just people voting for Gene Sawyer, but just people voting.
Sawyer and Daley, each running in the shadow of two City Hall legends, in a city where just holding on to power can be as difficult as getting it in the first place. Frank Courier, CBS News, Chicago.
Nobel Prize-winning psychologist and author Konrad Lorenz died last night at his home in Austria. He was 85.
Now, from any phone in America, you can get 30 minutes of 100% fiber optic long distance free. Just pick up a phone, call U.S. Sprint now, and talk with the best, free.
We compared the Subaru Jussi ECVT from 0 to 60 against 3 popular automatics. Against the Hyundai Excel, we blew their doors off. Against the Toyota Tercel, we blew their doors off. And against the Porsche 928S, well, they blew our doors off. But with a price of only $77.91, we can afford to get our doors fixed. Test drive it. Special incentives to dealers help you make your best deals.
feel good.
If you want to control your sodium, cholesterol, and fat intake, delicious Le Menu Lifestyle lets you feel
So good, so good, I got you.
Get your whole grain.
You better eat your Wheaties.
I feel good.
If you want to control your sodium, cholesterol, and fat intake, delicious Le Menu Lifestyle lets you feel
So good, so good, I got you.
Even by movie studio standards, this shapes up as a super colossal, never-seen-before extravaganza. It is the battle of Hollywood versus Hollywood. David Browning referees.
Everybody knows Hollywood, of course, the one in California. But there's also a Hollywood in Florida and Alabama and in 8 other states. And today, they all went to war.
Joe Clark, Hollywood, Arkansas.
Oh, great.
Ross Dover, Hollywood, Georgia, 1807.
Representatives of all the other Hollywoods gathered today to fight the California one for trying to get a trademark on the name and charge for its use.
Let's hold on to our own name, Hollywoods. Hollywood, California, leave us alone. Right quick, like.
But hold on here, says the California Hollywood. All we're trying to do is get royalties whenever somebody uses the name by itself on T-shirts or other souvenirs. Make the T-shirt say Hollywood, Florida or Hollywood, New Mexico, and there's no problem.
It's a complete misunderstanding on the part, particularly the people in Hollywood, Florida, who have stirred up the other Hollywoods. There is no way we can stop them from calling themselves Hollywood, any of them.
Welsh insists that businesses like Hollywood Fisheries Bait and Bill's Dish Barn of Hollywood, Georgia are in no danger of losing their names. But folks from the other Hollywoods are in no mood to be snookered by the California crowd.
We're proud of our town, and we don't want to feel like we can't use that name in any way that we choose. We had it first.
I was pretty angry about it, because I think it's a cheap shot.
And as all the other Hollywoods met today in Hollywood, Florida to plot strategies, school kids from the Florida Hollywood began a letter